All right, so hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about specifically Chrome extensions, but I just want to make like a quick note of like what I'm talking about when I say extensions and what I talk about when I'm saying Chrome. So an extension or a web browser extension specifically is basically something that you can add to your internet browser, whether that be Chrome, Safari, Microsoft Edge, Firefox. It's an extension you can add to one of these web browsers that will give it some added functionality. So there's a whole wide range of them depending on which web browser you're talking about. So today we're going to be talking about Chrome, which has a ton of extensions you can add to it. Something like Safari, for example, has a more limited number of extensions that you can add to it. But there's some that are actually like universal across all of them. And we'll kind of get into that. So the idea is that these extensions will make your life easier. They might add some functionality to, say, your Gmail, or add some functionality to your, I don't know, we'll kind of get into the specificities of it, but they're supposed to just allow you to kind of customize your web browser and get sort of a fuller experience from it, depending on your
Um,
needs. So why would you want to use an extension? So there could be a few different reasons. So for example, you might want to integrate with some other services that you use. So for example, if you use Password Manager, you probably want to use it as an extension on your web browser. So a password manager is something that'll kind of remember your passwords for you, so that you don't have to remember for every single website you log into that specific password. So that can be really useful. They can add additional features to your browser. So for example, we can take a look at Join tabs today, which is an extension specifically for Chrome that gives you this button that you can click to combine all of your Chrome tabs from multiple windows into one. So if you're like me and you have like 5 different Chrome actual windows open, and in each of those 5 different windows you have 3 different tabs, there's a button you can click that'll allow you to just combine them all into one window, and you'll see all 15 of those tabs in just that one window. So just like little things like that that can make it easier for you to navigate the interface of your web browser. Also, some of these extensions could modify how websites appear on your computer. So they might add certain content, remove it, or modify just how it's presented to you. So an example for that would be something called Invisible Hand, which adds information to shopping websites. So for example, if you're shopping on Amazon, and it can inform you if there's a cheaper price available on another website. There's actually a few different ones that are similar to that. There's Camel Iser we could take a look at. So that's one example of something that can kind of modify how you see content. There's modifications for Wikipedia as well. So if you kind of want the information on Wikipedia presented in a better way, there's something called WikiWand. So there's a ton. I won't get into all the specifics. I'll just kind of show you how you can access those extensions, how you can get into that library, and kind of give suggestions on a couple of like major ones that you might be interested in, such as an ad blocker, because we don't like to see ads before our YouTube videos. So at any rate, something to keep in mind as well, I am showing you the desktop version of Chrome, but you can get extensions on the Android version as well. So if you have Chrome downloaded on, actually I think also on the iOS, so on the iPhone and iPad versions, you can add extensions to Chrome to get some of these functionalities. Um, and like I mentioned, this is specifically on Chrome this session, but there are a number of extensions that we will talk about today. For example, Adblock, that are accessible on Safari, on Firefox, and on Microsoft Edge. So if you're not using Chrome, you're not necessarily missing out on this discussion. There are extensions available for the other web browsers as well. So just to go into it a little bit more in terms of how we get extensions. So right now I'm just showing you, this is just a bare bones Google Chrome here on the main page here. So right now I don't have any extensions installed on this instance. So I will show you how to kind of see what you have installed and see the extension store. So what you would do is in the top right corner of your Google Chrome browser. Again, this is the desktop version. You'll see these 3 vertical dots here. So I'm going to click that. And if you go down to more tools you'll see extensions appear here. So again, you click on that dot, go down to more tools, scroll down to extensions, and if you click that, you'll see here the extensions that you have already installed on your Google Chrome instance. So in my case, like I said, I don't have anything. This is just what comes default with the Google Chrome web browser. So like Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides, that's just all part of it. It's a package deal kind of thing. So you can remove those if you wish. You can click on the details and just kind of find a little bit more about what that extension is, what it does in the description. It will indicate which permissions that extension has. So kind of similar to an app on your phone. Apps might have certain permissions that you ask, or sorry, that they ask you to give them. So like access to your camera or access to your contacts or what have you. So you can kind of figure out which permissions a particular extension has by clicking on that details there. So there's also something as well, if you want certain extensions to still function if you're in incognito mode, which if you're not privy to what incognito mode is, it's basically just a separate sort of instance of Chrome that you can open up on your computer that won't log cookies and won't keep browser history. And essentially it's like if you want to maybe like make bank payments or something, you might want to go into incognito mode because it just has a little bit more privacy with that. So you can allow certain extensions to run in incognito mode if you wish, but just keep in mind, and they do give you a warning here, if you do allow that, then that particular extension is potentially able to record your browsing history, and if you're really doing something sensitive, you might not want that. So just a word of caution there. So yeah, so that's just the details section. Like I said, I do not have any extensions really installed right now. So in terms of how we actually access the store to get more extensions, and I say store, but you don't pay for them. So what we would do here, so we're going to go back to that three dots in the top right corner there. And if you click on settings, so I'll be taken to the settings page. So you can go down now to the extensions in that left-hand corner there. I hope this is big enough that everyone can see. I think it kind of defaulted the size there. There we go. So yeah, so you can click on extensions and it will take you, oh, no, it didn't. It should take me to the store. Took me to the store in the other one I was using. All right, well that's okay, because if I can't access it through here, the other easy way to get to the Chrome Web Store is to type in Chrome Web Store in the search bar at the top there. So if I hit that, the very first link that'll come back to me will take me to the Google Chrome Web Store, so you can click that. Okay, so like I said, it's called a web store, but these extensions are for the most part free. I don't know of any that actually cost money, but this is similar to an interface that you'd see, say, if you're on your phone and you're going to the Play Store or the Apple Store. So these are kind of the little apps, you could call them, or the extensions that you can install and have running in your Google Web Chrome browser. So we're going to look at some of some of the more useful and more popular extensions. So one that's pretty big is called Grammarly. So I'll just open that for you here. So you can search any extension, like if you have a particular one that you're looking for, you can search it in this top left-hand corner here that says search extension. So like I said, we're gonna look at Grammarly. And then it'll give you your search results here, and you can click on the name of whichever extension you're interested in, and it'll tell you a little bit more information about that. So it'll give you an overview. You can take a look at the reviews and see what other people are saying. And then it even gives you sort of like things that are related to that. If maybe you didn't want Grammarly, you want something similar, you can take a look at the other related extensions there. So Grammarly is a really, really useful extension because it actually will check your grammar, not just your spelling. So say, for example, you're using your Chrome web browser and you go into Gmail and you're typing up an email to someone, rather than just having it check your actual spelling, it will make sure that you're using the appropriate phrasing and whatnot as well. So it's basically like an advanced spell and grammar checker for Chrome. And it does not just check email, but it'll check basically anywhere else that you're kind of inputting a body of text. So that is a really useful one to add to your web browser. And so the way that you would add this, so there should be a big button on the right-hand side there that says Add to Chrome. So if you click that, it'll bring up this little dialog box that says Add Grammarly for Chrome, and it will state below that what permissions you're going to be giving that extension. So in this case, read and change all your data on the websites you visit, because again, you're going to be correcting, say, your grammar. So that makes sense. It'll display notifications, and it'll communicate with cooperating websites. So if you're cool with those permissions, then you can go ahead and click Add Extension, and it will automatically add that extension to your Chrome web browser. So you'll see it kind of appear in this top, there we go. Okay, it's going to open a website too for me. You'll see it appear just beside the search bar at the top here. So kind of on that right-hand side, I see this little icon now for Grammarly. So some of them, some of these extensions will require that you sign into a Google account. I'm not going to right now, just I wanted to keep it kind of blank slate. But that is now installed. So I wonder if I can show an example, because it should be running now. Yeah, okay, so it's active. I don't need to log in. There's just some features that it won't have working for it. So let me just open Google Docs. Just so I can show you. Oh, I have to sign in for that. Okay, maybe not. We'll find another one that I can show you like how it's functioning in Chrome. But at any rate, take my word for it, Grammarly is installed now. So now it will be checking your grammar on sort of related sites. Like I said, the big one would be if you're typing up an email, but even if you're posting on a blog or replying as a comment to something, it should be working as well to check your grammar in those cases. So that was Grammarly. So another one that is quite popular and useful, so I'm just going to go back to the main page here on the web store. Another one that's quite useful is called HTTPS Everywhere. So this one is more of a security related extension. So the idea of it is that it adds this encryption function to any website you go to. So it'll ensure that any website you visit is going to be the HTTPS version and not the HTTP version, which in layman's terms is basically just saying it'll take you to the secure version of that site, no matter what. So it'll rewrite kind of the URL in the I've just forgotten the word for it. It'll rewrite the URL for you from HTTP to HTTPS. You'll get the secure version of the website. This is just good just to have in general, because again, there are some sites that maybe are not as secure as others and might potentially be trying to you know, get some information on you that you don't necessarily want them to be tracking. And so this is just adding an extra little layer of security that you might want on your web browser. So this is super simple to install as well. So like I said, if you just hit Add to Chrome, it'll bring up that dialog box and you just hit Add Extension and that will automatically be added to your web browser. So I'm gonna close this for now. So it's just prompting me right now to say, so basically, if I install extensions on my desktop computer, on Chrome on my desktop computer, but I also have a laptop or I also have my phone web browser and I also have my iPad, like anywhere that I'm running Chrome, you can actually turn on sync, so that basically if I install an extension on my desktop, it will automatically install and update itself on my laptop and on my iPad and on my phone as well. So whatever extensions I have on one instance of Google Chrome, whether it's on my desktop or wherever, it'll kind of perpetuate that across every instance of Google Chrome that I use, which is just useful. You don't want to have to keep like reinstalling all of your extensions on every device. So I have sync turned on personally. I find it quite useful, but if for some reason you just want those extensions on your desktop and you don't want it on your laptop, then you don't have to turn that on. I'm just going to close that for now for this demo. So that was HTTPS Everywhere. There's also another kind of useful one for just general, like, you know, making your life a little bit easier. So you can download Google Dictionary. So again, I'll just type that in. I'm not actually seeing it appear. I'm not seeing it appear in the extensions here, so maybe I'm looking up the wrong search term, but that's okay. We'll just move on. Yeah, so I was mentioning before there's some extensions that are specifically for if you're doing shopping online and you want to find kind of like the best deal for something. There's a bunch of them. One I'll show is called WikiBuy. So it also isn't appearing. Maybe I'm looking up the wrong search terms here. Okay, that's okay. One that's similar is called Camel Iser. I'll just look up that one. Okay, so Camel Iser is fun. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this site, Camel, but the idea is that this app will show you the historical pricing of something. So if you're on Amazon, for example, you can click on the Camel Iser button and it'll show you historically how much that item has cost. So for example, if you're looking at that and you see it's on a really high peak, you probably don't want to buy that item because it's probably going to drop again. And something like Amazon.com, oftentimes prices do fluctuate. So you might want to kind of keep an eye on, you know, whether or not to buy something right now, or maybe you want to wait a couple of weeks. So Camel Iser is a really useful app for that, especially for those of us who use Amazon a lot. So, yeah, so basically if I go on to like, I'll just go on like Amazon.com just to show that the app is working, and I'll look up, I don't know, what's something fun.
Hard drives. That's not fun. Sorry.
That's not fun at all. But sure, we'll look up hard drives because that does fluctuate quite a bit. Okay, so I've navigated to the item that I'm interested in. So you'll see in the top right-hand corner there, that little icon for Camel Iser. If I mouse over it, it'll say the Camel Iser. If I click on that, then it'll show me a graph of basically like the historical pricing for this item. So on Amazon itself, it's showing that it's like pretty cheap right now compared to what it has been historically. So it'll say, okay, the lowest it ever was 51, the highest was 75. So right now it's at 62. And you can actually put in as well if there's a specific price that you're like, okay, when it hits 50, I'm gonna buy this. You can actually put that in and create a price watch, and it will email you when the item reaches that price. So again, that's super useful for Amazon. That's really useful for things like eBay. It's just great if there's items that you're kind of like waiting to buy until they reach a certain price point. So the Camel Iser is a really useful extension there. You can also just use the website itself, but I find having the extension in Google Chrome, like right there, that a click of the button, I can just access it. It's a lot easier to use that way. So yeah, so that was the Camel Iser. Okay, one that I find pretty much everyone should just have this if you have Google Chrome. I don't see why you wouldn't have this, would be Adblock. So there's Adblock and there's Adblock Plus. It's interesting that a lot of the things I'm looking up, it's like not appearing in the ad store, but I have it installed.
Yeah,
in
you
Google
can.
Chrome.
I tried Googling the other ones. For some reason, it just didn't come up.
Yeah. So
Google
just that's weird that it's doing that. So if for some reason you're not finding something in the search in the actual Chrome store, you can also just Google it because it's Google, so it's gonna put the results for its web store up first. So for example, if I look up Adblock in the search bar there, yeah, the very first thing that comes up is Adblock. So this is a really great app for getting rid of pop-up ads, getting rid of video promotions, like any kind of distracting, annoying ad that you have when you're navigating websites. This will remove them. I think it also removes them from YouTube. So for example, if you're just like browsing YouTube, you see a video that would have, oh gosh, all right, we're gonna click sugar cookies. So, okay, so I'm seeing an ad right now, right? They always play those 15-second ads. All right, I'm gonna install Adblock right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and add extension. It'll take a second and get itself loaded. All right, cool, it's installed. So once it's kind of shown that it's done there. So it's free, but they're just like, hey, if you really like this, you should donate to us. We're not going to do that today. We're going to go back to YouTube, and I'm going to show you that now I no longer have ads. So I'll click that sugar cookie again. Et voila, no more ads. So this will remove them completely from YouTube. It'll remove ads from certain websites. Just bear in mind, I have noticed that some websites, especially news websites, will do this annoying thing where if they notice that you're using an ad blocker, they'll pop up this like, hey, we noticed you're using an ad blocker, and in order to proceed, you need to deactivate your ad blocker. So if you do ever need to deactivate it for a certain website, that's pretty easy to do. So you would go ahead and click on the ad block icon, that little stop sign there, and you can say pause on this site or pause on all sites. You could also even just say like don't run on pages on this site, for example, if you just want it to blanket like never run on that specific website. So like the New York Times or something, I think is one that tends to get a little bit upset if you use ad blockers. You can set it to not run on that site, but just to keep in mind, if you ever do need to pause it for some reason, you just have to click on the icon and you have that option there. So that was ad block. I'm trying to think, there's a few other ones that I really wanted to share. You can very easily, and some like a way that I've found extensions that I really like is simply by Googling best extensions for Google Chrome, and then I kind of have someone else tell me like what's the sort of short list of things that I might find useful for Chrome. So I recommend doing something like that if you're interested. But just another like couple of like little ones here and there that I find useful. So you can install something called Weather. So what Weather does is it'll just put the current temperature right there in the top right hand corner of your browser. So at any point, if you're like, hey, what's the weather right now? You can just take a look at it and it'll tell you the temperature. If you click on it, it'll actually show you. So I'll install it just so that we can see. All right, so I have it now in the top right-hand corner. It's currently 27 in Ottawa, a little toasty. So you can go ahead and click on that icon and it'll tell you, you know, like what's the probability of precipitation, what's the highs, what's the lows. So you get all your weather right there, and you can add other locations if you so wish as well. It knows where I live because unless you've changed the setting in your Google Chrome, Google Chrome knows where you are. So just a note there. I believe if you're in incognito mode, as I was mentioning earlier, it won't have any like GPS location on you, at least not that it tells you. So you won't be able to use weather, for example, but just a note. Okay, hold on. There are a couple other ones that I wanted to mention. So there was weather. We looked at the Camel Iser. There's also, okay, we looked at Adblock. Oh, LastPass, yeah. So I mentioned LastPass earlier, but I'll just show you guys now. So LastPass is something called a password manager. So it's basically a way that you can have all your passwords kind of be in one place and remembered, but also safely encrypted so that nobody can kind of like hack in and steal your passwords from you, sort of thing. So this is really useful if you have a ton of different accounts and a ton of different websites and you have a bunch of different passwords for them and you can't remember them all. And rather than writing it down on a piece of paper that you might eventually throw out or lose, you can just have it kind of baked into Chrome. So LastPass is very useful for that. Oops, I just clicked the back button by accident. So yeah, so like it says that you can store your login, usernames and passwords. It'll actually save if you want. It can save credit card information. And all of this is kind of underneath the hood of this password manager, so it's all encrypted safely. So nobody should be able to hack in and take your passwords from you. But yeah, so this is one. I think LastPass is also available on Safari. I believe it's also available on Firefox and Edge. It's one of those kind of like everywhere because everyone wants it kind of extensions. Similarly, I had mentioned before Adblock, that also is accessible on all the different web browsers. Again, that's one that I feel like everyone should just install Adblock because it it removes so many ads, and especially for YouTube, it's really great to have. So yeah, so that's LastPass. I'll add it just for the sake of showing you. So we'll go ahead and take a second to install. This one's taking a little longer than the others. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so we have LastPass installed. So you would create an account for LastPass. that would then be used to go in and like access all of your other passwords. So I'm not going to bother going through that account creation now. If there's ever any of these apps, or sorry, rather extensions that you on your own try to install and you're having some issues, they should be really, really straightforward. But you know, it happens. Feel free to request like a one-on-one session, or in the Q&A we can go over that. But at any rate, so that's LastPass. A couple other ones. So there are some accessibility extensions as well that I'll mention just because someone might find them useful. Oops, I accidentally closed the store. There we go. So there is something called Zoom browser extension. So let me just go back. I believe it's just Zoom. Okay, I think it's this one. Yeah, so if you know you need to kind of manipulate the level of zoom on your browser, there's keyboard shortcuts for that. You know, you hit Control and use your scroll wheel. But if you want to actually have sort of additional control over that, there's something called Zoom for Google Chrome. Again, I think this is one that is also available on, I don't know if it's available on Safari, but I believe this is available on Edge and Firefox as well. So the idea behind Zoom is it just gives you, so that little Z in the corner there, it just gives you the ability to use this actual scroll bar to sort of increase and decrease the zoom on a website. So that might be more useful for some people than, like I was mentioning, the keyboard shortcut, which is either Control and then like the plus or the negative key on your keyboard, or Control and the scroll wheel. So this is just potentially something that someone might find useful if you need bigger font on your screen. And then there was also Oswald. I'll show you guys that one too. So this is one other accessibility extension for Chrome. So the idea behind Oswald is it will take, so if you have any kind of difficulty reading, vision difficulties, visual impairments, you can use Oswald and it'll basically extract the text on a website and put it onto an easier read screen, and it can also read out what's on the screen for you. So it's a screen reader essentially. So I'll show you guys as an example. So it kind of has, so once you install it, usually you'll like open up a new page on Chrome that'll just give you a little bit of information about the extension or some of the preferences that you can set. So for Oswald here, it's just giving me sort of some options that I can set here. Maybe I want off black on off white for my reading. You can change the font, etc. So I'm just going to hit save on that. And then if I go on a site, let's say Wikipedia, I'll look up cats. So on a certain website, if I go ahead and then click Oswald, I can click enable Oswald, and it will enable itself across different websites. So see, right now I just enabled it, and now I'm kind of getting like an easier to read version of that Wikipedia article. I can also switch to reading mode, and it doesn't want to do that for me right now, but that's okay. So we'll just keep it on that. But I believe the reading mode is what actually reads it out loud to you. I'm not going to bother kind of figuring out what the issue is with that at the moment. But at any rate, this is just, again, if you're having some difficulty with visual impairments, Oswald might be useful. And then, like I said, there is always, if there's additional extensions that you want, or you're just kind of interested in exploring a bit more, you can just go to the Chrome Web Store and browse around. So they'll have like a recommended for you page. There's sort of, you can look at top apps or editors picks. There'll be specific apps for productivity. There'll be specific apps for even like games and whatnot as well. And then, as I mentioned before, I personally found it really useful to just look up top app or top extensions for Google Chrome, and it gave me a whole list of must-have extensions, at the top of which I believe was Adblock, but not to rev on that too much. And then you can similarly do that. So like I said, this was focused more on Google Chrome, but similarly for Safari, Firefox, and Microsoft Edge, there are extensions as well. So you could go ahead and look up, so like say top extensions for Safari, and they'll give you, oh, Oswald is active. I'm going to turn that off. All right. So so for Safari, for example, it'll give you a list of sort of the best extensions for that. So that's just for Safari. Similarly, you could look them up for Edge and for Firefox if you use either of those browsers instead. But yeah, so just kind of in summary, you know, do try and check out some of these extensions. I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you don't have it, that everyone kind of take a look at Adblock or Adblock Plus, because they will make YouTube a far better experience without ads. Grammarly is really, really great too. LastPass is awesome for any of you, and this is directed at myself too, who tend to forget passwords and want to keep them kind of under lock and key. So those are 3 really, really great and popular extensions that you can add to actually not just Chrome. You can add those to Safari, you can add those to Firefox, or you can add those to Edge. And then yeah, anything else, Google is your friend for that if you want to explore other potential extensions to add to your web browser. But I think that's all I have for today, other than I will just briefly touch on, and I accidentally closed my presentation notes. There we go. I will just briefly touch on sort of safety behind extensions. So as I was kind of alluding to earlier, you do give certain permissions to extensions when you install them. We did see that little pop-up that came up before we clicked Add Extension, and it did outline which permissions you were giving for that specific extension. So those permissions might not ever be used for any kind of nefarious purposes, but that doesn't mean that you should necessarily just trust any extension that you're adding to Chrome. Anything can be hacked. There's no guarantee that the code that that specific person wrote is necessarily trustworthy and completely secure. So always be careful when you're installing any kind of extension to your web browser, even if it looks secure. That's why I kind of recommend looking more at sort of the top extensions, so something like Adblock, something like Grammarly, because those are so widely used, it's less likely that those are unsafe. But take a look as well. So again, when we are in that Chrome store there, which I'll just go back to real quick so I can show you. Take a look at the reviews as well. Not that they're necessarily indicative of the safety of something, but it might not be a bad practice that when you're looking at an app, just see what other people are saying before you install it. But yeah, that's my spiel on safety there. So